when you talk about liberation as authors, I mean, what do you actually mean? Because I think when many people think about liberation, they have in their own mind's eye perhaps Mandela being released from prison, South Africans getting the vote, all South Africans getting the vote. Um, but it's clear from the book, actually, that liberation has different meanings for different peoples. So what is your take? What does liberation mean for a Palestinian?
I honestly, I don't know about these different takes, but I tell you, I think that there is this unity that Ilan Pappé spoke about in the idea, in the belief that liberation means regaining Palestine. It's very simple. No Palestinian ever really accepted the loss of the homeland. None of us ever believes or thinks that it's gone forever. And I'm sure I'm right. That I haven't done a survey, but I'm sure I'm right in my encounters with fellow Palestinians, in what one sees, what one hears. The idea that Palestinians have carried all these years since 1948 is the idea that it cannot go on forever. By it, I mean Israel. This injustice cannot go on forever. And it's a very vivid thing felt by Palestinians. It's not a slogan to say, you know, this injustice cannot prevail, because people feel it very strongly. They know there is a homeland, it's sitting there, and other people are in it and saying it's theirs. It's not acceptable. And nobody else. So liberation for me, and I think most Palestinians, means regaining Palestine.
And when I was talking to Ilan a few moments ago, he was saying that you were one of the very, well, you were many, many years ago, you were talking about a one-state solution. So essentially what I guess all of the authors are talking about in this book is a historic Palestine, a one-state solution, a secular democratic Palestine, not just the occupied territories.
No.
So the question, I suppose, is, did you feel from your involvement with this book and with the other contributors that you actually laid out a roadmap for how this could actually happen?
Well, first of all, in terms of the one-state idea, yes, indeed, I was writing about this many, many years ago. Not because I was sitting there trying to find a blueprint for a democratic structure which would include, you know, all the inhabitants and so on. Of course, that was implied, but the impetus for it, and I'm sure the impetus in the Palestinian mind is what I've just talked about: regaining Palestine. You know, so in other words, the starting point says, I cannot and I will never accept the occupation and the loss of my country. Second step, I will fight. I believe it to be the right thing to do, and I will fight to regain that homeland. Those are very simple to understand. Now, then you come to this, only then do you come to the third stage, where you say, all right, what are we really talking about here? We do have an Israeli Jewish population sitting in my homeland. That is a fact. They need accommodating. And there has to be a way in which they can be accommodated, and we, that is not only the we Palestinians who are living already in historic Palestine, but all the Palestinians who are living outside it, who are exiled or who are sitting in refugee camps, people like me. How can we accommodate this? How can we realistically do it? Well, quite clearly, it has to be, there's no divisions. You can't partition Palestine. The people have to live together. How are they going to live together? Ideally, of course, as one person, one vote, in a democracy with equal rights. Now, I think maybe my own contribution in the chapter that I wrote is to really very seriously engage with how. Because, you know, a lot of people write about the one state and it's very good and it's very desirable. But if you say, well, how are we going to get there? You know, there is usually a silence. And in my chapter, I put forward a very controversial way of getting there, which for which, when I've lectured on this, I've been branded a traitor, somebody who denies the history of resistance on the part of all the sacrifice that Palestinians have made, that kind of thing. But it is a way of trying to attain this end. Now, I don't know whether you want me to go on and talk about that.
Well, we will certainly come back to that if we may.